Well, hey, thank you for joining us to cap off another busy week of all things people, power, and politics. This is The Pulse. I am Brandon Hudson. We've got a lot of ground to cover tonight. People always talk about the low turnout during primaries, but Detroiters showed up more than they have in recent years, and we're going by the numbers. Speaking of the primary, a big theme that came out was the neighborhoods versus downtown. It is no question that downtown's seen a lot of improvement, but some people in some of the neighborhoods have asked, well, what about us? We're talking to two city council members who are running to keep their seats about this and the goals they have for the city moving forward. And once again, we are talking tariffs, from dozens taking effect around the world to the new ones on computer chips, and it could drive the cost of a lot of stuff sky high. Former auto supply chain executive Jan Griffiths is here to break that all down. Those import taxes are where we start tonight. President Trump recently slapped 50% tariffs on imports from India. That's where we get our medications, our clothes, our jewelry. Well, now that the country is retaliating by refusing to buy any American weapons. Meanwhile, Canada is looking for new trade partners and building their economy. Despite that, President Donald Trump is standing his ground, with the White House saying the plan is working.
Do you expect increased trade negotiations, since you've announced the 50% tariff?
No, not until we get it resolved.
Focusing on what we can control. And yes, we're having discussions with the Americans, but Canadians want us to focus here at home, build out homes.
And the saga continues. Well, American farmers say they are facing high fertilizer and machinery prices, along with fewer options for exporting goods. The White House is considering what it calls a market fluctuation plan to give farmers that were hurt by tariffs and payments a chance. Well, turning now to the war in Ukraine. President Trump plans to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin at the end of next week, but there is a key condition. Trump says that Putin has to be serious about these peace talks. Bloomberg reports that the U.S. and Russia are working on an agreement to allow Putin to keep Ukrainian territory Russia took over after invading the country. Ukraine's president says that he needs to be involved in these talks, while a new peace deal was signed on Friday that could set the stage for next week's summit.
Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Ukraine were all part of the Soviet Union. This is all technically Putin's sphere of influence that he claims. But here we have President Trump bringing an end to this long conflict.
When those guns start going off, it's awfully tough to get them to stop. It really does. It's a war that should have never happened.
It is right for Ukraine to be a participant in the negotiations. Russia's war is against Ukraine, against our independence.
Now, the White House isn't commenting on any details of a peace deal for the war, saying that they want to respect sensitive diplomatic discussions. And that is just scratching the surface. So let's pick up the pace. We're going to run through some of the other big stories at this hour. The Internal Revenue Service Commissioner, well, he's out of a job. President Trump removed Billy Long from the job less than 2 months after his confirmation. And it is not clear why he was dismissed, but he is the shortest tenured IRS commissioner since the position was created back in 1862. Long says that he was nominated as ambassador to Iceland. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent will serve as acting commissioner. The Justice Department subpoenas New York Attorney General Letitia James for records in a lawsuit that she filed against President Trump. The lawsuit surrounded alleged fraud in his business dealings. A source says it's part of an investigation that if James violated Trump's civil rights. Attorney General Pam Bondi also named a special prosecutor to investigate mortgage fraud allegations against James and Democratic Congressman Adam Schiff. Both have denied any wrongdoing, and they call these claims politically motivated. And a new lawsuit related to the Jeffrey Epstein case is challenging the Trump administration. The group Democracy Forward has sued the FBI and the Justice Department for communications between officials about Epstein documents and any documents about correspondence between Epstein and Trump. The DOJ has not commented. The group says that it filed for a Freedom of Information Act request last month, but those haven't been fulfilled. All right. Before we end this week, we do want to take a look back at Tuesday's primary. And you already know who the winners are in the elections. If you need a reminder, you can always go to fox2detroit.com. But in the mayoral race, you might have heard a common theme. Take a listen.
in a neighborhood, and that's big for her. She wants to take some of the focus, some of the funding out of downtown and into the neighborhood.
They say his message resonates because it bridges the gap between the people downtown and those in the neighborhood where he comes from.
Is there a division between neighborhoods and the midtown and downtown and all that?
Well, this is absolutely a tale of two cities that's here, and there's a reckoning that's coming in that regard.
Again, it's all about the neighborhoods and downtowns, and that's something that we're going to dive deeper into with our council members, Coleman A. Young II and Mary Waters. But we talked a lot about that turnout. Of course, this wasn't as high as, say, the presidential year, but it was better than it has been. So, as we like to do on The Pulse, let's go by these numbers. So first, here's a comparison to this year's turnout versus the last several. Detroit saw 17% turnout this year. And of course, this sounds low, but you want to compare it to 2021 and 2017, when 14% of the people registered, they came out. The only year that beat that was 2013, just barely, with 18%. And yep, that's the year that Mayor Mike Duggan ended up winning the election. And just for fun, we're going to take a deep dive even deeper. Primary turnout for 2025 was roughly 88,113. That number could fill LCA, Little Caesars Arena, for a Red Wings game for about 4 times over. It's also higher than the capacities of Ford Field and Spartan Stadium. And the only number that it couldn't fill was the Big House, Michigan Stadium. But hey, with a number like 107,601, that is not easy. Sheila Cockrell with Citizens Detroit says that while the number is low than she would like, this is a reason for optimism.
It's still an abysmally low number, but something has captured some level of imagination for voters in the city that 3% more people decided having their voice heard in this primary was important. Once the data comes out, it's going to be important to review it, to figure out what the factors are. But I see that as a really positive development. And, shouldn't do a, major throw a party for this, but it's something that is important because it's a sign that people are engaging at a higher level around local elections in 2025 than they did in 2021.
And of course, we will see what this means for November. But right now, I want you to take a look at the bottom of your screen here. Fox2Detroit.com. We are asking if you typically vote in these primary elections. And if you want to weigh in, all you got to do, get your phone out, scan that QR code in the bottom right of your screen. So far, most of you say yes. This is close, though. It's about a 60-30 split. But we're keeping the conversation going about the primary after the break. Council members Mary Waters, we've got Coleman A. Young II. They are in Studio C to talk about their priorities for the city as they elect a new leader. You're watching The Pulse right here on Fox 2. Well, we're back now looking at all things people, power, and politics. Joining us now to discuss the future of the Motor City as we get ready to elect a new mayor, city council members Mary Waters, Coleman Young II. It is nice to see you both. Thank you and welcome to The Pulse.
Oh, thank you.
So first and foremost, congratulations on your primary victories and turnouts. And I know the focus is on November. But as far as just talking about the seat that could be up for grabs, you both have an opportunity to become council president. What would that mean for you? Am I correct in saying that, or?
Well, actually, council president, you're elected by your colleagues.
Okay.
It's not. It doesn't. It's not determined by the people anymore.
Got you.
It used to be some years ago, but now if you can get 5 votes,
yes, then
you can become council president or pro tem.
I appreciate the lesson there, the quick lesson here. But first, let's talk about this election here. The turnout, we had 3% more people to turn out. For both of you who've been in office for quite some time, what does that mean? And Councilman Young, we'll start with you.
Mm-hmm. Say the last part again.
What does it mean to have the voter turnout be a lot larger than it was by 3% than it has been over the last?
Well, first of all, it's a blessing. And first of all, I would say, Brandon, always good to see you. Look like new money.
Sure.
The hardest working man in shows, but it's my main man.
Thank you.
Always good to see you. No place I'd rather be. Listen, it's a blessing. It really, truly is a blessing and an honor for the people to be able to come out and vote. I think they understand the importance of these elections. I think now in the political climate that we're in, people understand the sacrifice that people had to go through, the blood, that was shed, the people that lost their lives, the broken bones that took place in order for us to have the right to exercise our franchise. And so I'm just thankful to everybody in the city of Detroit that came out there and voted for me and supported me, got behind me, and I'm thankful to the supporters as well. Now, the biggest room in the world is a room for improvement. And even though we've had success, even though the city is now growing, and even though we've increased in the vote count, we still could do better than 17%. And so I think that the general, that's going to grow, and not only is that going to grow in the general, because we're going to be engaged more with our constituencies, but in future elections, I look to work with Jan Griffiths. I want to say thank you to her, as well as the mayor as well, and the administration, for being able to reach out more and being able to be more engaging, to take our souls to the polls and go vote. So I'm excited about it.
Councilman Waters.
Well, I'm certainly happy that the people came out to vote. That is because they realize that there's something at stake here. They're going to be getting a new mayor come November, and they want to be a part of that. But people are also, I think, sending a message to us that we want you to do something. I heard people talk a lot more about neighborhoods. They're talking about those kinds of things. And so they want housing. Housing is a major, major issue in this city. I'm so very grateful for people supporting me, voting for me, coming out. I got to tell you, I am so humbled by it because I didn't put out any yard signs. I didn't do anything. And I said, people says, well, you don't have any yard signs. You don't have this, you don't have that. I said, you know what? I tell you what, we've done the work. Let's see what the people say. And they showed up and they showed out. And I certainly appreciate that. I want Detroiters to know, hey, that's Detroit love. Right. I appreciate that. So we have to continue to move forward. People are asking. My staff went to 2 meetings yesterday, one yesterday and one today, community meetings. And guess what they were discussing? Everybody was discussing housing. So I'm very proud of the work that I've done thus far when it comes to housing. $203 million housing initiative, a dedicated call center to handle all of our housing needs. We have more renters in this city now than homeowners. We want to improve on that next term. We have got to create more home ownership. And for low-income people as well. If people want to become homeowners, then we need to identify ways to making sure that happens.
You talk about
$1 billion in 5 years in affordable housing as well, invested, as well as $5 million in the ARPA funds to homelessness as well in terms of housing. I just wanted to make that clear.
You talk about housing, and I think a big part of
Mm-hmm.
housing is also getting people to want to stay here. We're seeing a lot more people come into Michigan, come into Detroit. In addition to housing, what is your pitch to get more people to not only just stay here, but also get out and make a change and vote?
Well, you try to encourage people to come out and participate in the process. So we have to continue to go to them. We have to make sure that we are creating ways that they can participate in their government. We've got to deliver for people. Now, we've been delivering for the past 4 years, 3.5 years at least. We have to continue to do that. People need to understand that they matter. We need to find ways to work with Lansing, as I did before. I'm a former state representative. Work with Lansing and say, help us to identify ways to lower our property taxes so that we can bring more people in here. Continue to find ways to help people with down payment assistance for first-time home buyers. I had an opportunity to work with a number of young people on Tuesday who stood at the polls for me. That was exciting for me. Getting the young people engaged, that meant so much to me. So we have to engage people at all levels. Our senior citizens we've got to move many of them out of high rises too. Our seniors are not safe in those high rises. Elevators break, air conditioners go out. There's been a lot of housing issues that we've had to deal with. And we're going to change that. We're going to work to change those things.
I also just wanted to say as well, I'm a proud co-sponsor of the pilot ordinance, which basically is if you build affordable housing, instead of paying taxes, you pay a fee in lieu of taxes, a payment in lieu of taxes. One, it also got rid of a lot of the red tape and sort of building more affordable housing that way. I think that's something that's very important.
And we are both
absolutely.
Yes,
but I also think, I'll make sure. I didn't know if you were or not. But speaking of something that we're both co-sponsors of, I also think it's important for us to have more jobs.
That's right.
And I'm very proud of the Jumpstart program that I had that paid people to learn a skill. And we
that was one of the best things we did.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's about $30 million, hired about 1,200 people. You know, they became truck drivers, they became city workers, they became registered nurse assistants. So it was about $2,200 per person, $7,200 per in Detroit organization. So we were able to teach people how to get skills, be able to get jobs and opportunities. Because in order to get a house, you got to have a job.
And people are asking, can you find money to continue that program?
Yeah.
People really like that program. Remember, Young, I went to the graduation. All of that excitement.
Yeah.
People were walking around with their caps on. I mean, just witnessing that kind of enthusiasm. We need to find more money to continue that program.
And as my father said,
it works.
There's no problem the city of Detroit that a good paying job can't fix.
I hear you. Look, we got 30 seconds.
Jobs.
We got 30 seconds real quick. Yeah, let's fast forward to November. How do you, when you get in office, how do you plan to work nationally with the Trump administration to help Detroit be as great as it is now?
Well, let me just say that I've kind of already started that.
Yeah.
I've reached out to the Secretary of HUD, Scott Turner, invited him to come in because we have a lot of people here in this city who have subsidized housing. They live in subsidized housing. They receive vouchers and things like that. And some of our seniors in particular are very nervous about whether or not they will have that supplement income, those vouchers to help them with their rent. There's a strong possibility that those things could be eliminated. So I wanted to invite in Secretary of HUD, Turner, Scott Turner, just to say to him, hey, listen, I know that you guys are sitting here in Washington, D.C., you're throwing numbers around. Come on. Look at some of the faces that you could be hurting.
I hear you. Look, Councilmember Waters, Councilmember Young, I appreciate both of you. You're always welcome on the Pulse, even if I'm here, even if Roop's here too as well. So thank you so much. Enjoy your weekend as well.
Always good to see you, my man.
Yes, always good to see you.
Yeah, best of luck.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, so we're going to talk tariffs right after the break. Former auto supply chain executive Jan Griffiths, she is here in studio. She's waving around like they just don't care. She's got to look at the impact that these taxes could have on you. The Pulse returns in 3 minutes. Well, it is People, Power, and Politics. Welcome back to Detroit's only nightly political talk show. This is The Pulse. Joining us now to discuss the impact tariffs could have on you and your family, former auto supply chain executive and host of the Automotive Leaders Podcast, Jan Griffiths. Jan, it is a pleasure to see you. Welcome back to The Pulse.
Thank you.
How you doing?
Good.
So we're talking about tariffs here. And it is always tough talking about money. And we just had an interesting discussion during the break here. Let's talk about people's paychecks, because you were telling me this is not talked about a lot. I do remember during President Trump's first term, a lot of people said, hey, look, I'm getting more money in my paycheck. I think that was a motivation for a lot of people for this, this election cycle. But how are the tariffs impacting the paychecks that are coming up?
Well, that's a timely question. There's been a lot in the news lately about the UAW bonus checks. The UAW workers have experienced pretty good bonuses in the last few years. And GM, they're expecting the GM bonus check to be somewhere of $3,000 to $4,000 less than it was last year. But think about it from this way. Often we look at the headlines and we say, hey, tariffs are bringing in $150 billion. Yay, that's great, right? But let's follow the money. So that $150 billion, that's a tax, that's a tariff. The company importing the product pays that tariff. Then they get to decide how much of that do they eat themselves, how much of that do they pass on the consumer. So GM has been eating a lot of the tariffs. Well, now it's going to impact their profits. Where do we think this money is coming from? So if they have less profits, then the profit sharing and the bonus checks are lower. So that is really going to hurt us in this area.
Look, we have talked about, earlier in the newscast, we talked about President Trump saying he believes the tariff plan is working. What does that mean, and what does that mean for a lot of the people who are, at home and getting these paychecks, or really just trying to buy products for their home?
Yeah. we're going to see it impact just about everything we buy. I would encourage people to, when you go to the store, take a look at that tag or that sticker or the label and look at where is it made. I was at Cornwall at the hospital today with a friend of mine. We had the discussion about tariffs, and we started to pick up all the medical equipment that was in it. Made in China, made in China, made in China. So again, the health companies are either going to decide to absorb some of that, and if they do absorb some of it, the next question is how long? And the auto suppliers, the auto companies are in the same situation. They will absorb it for a period of time, but it's not sustainable. They will have to pass it on. So we're going to see the price of just about every product that we bring in from another country increase. The effective tariff rate right now is somewhere in the 15 to 20% range. This is the highest tariff rate we've seen in this country since 1935. So if we think that we are not going to feel this pain, think again. We are feeling this pain.
You talk about products, and you were talking about products at the hospital. A big headline was the tariffs on computer chips.
Yes.
As we were talking about this, what realistically does that mean for people? Because we're always buying phones and we're always buying laptops seemingly every 2, 3, 4 years.
Yeah, good question. The U.S. buys roughly $60 billion of chips. They import around about $60 billion worth of chips a year, right? And President Trump just announced a 100% tariff on chips coming from other countries. So that's going to increase the cost of all products that use a computer chip, and that, as you know, there are a lot of them.
One other thing, in addition to computer chips, used cars. We're seeing a lot more people try to buy used cars. There's always the fear of, I need to get this car now before the price continues to go up. What have you seen and how tariffs have affected not just people buying new, but buying used as well?
Yeah, well, the used market is starting to increase as well. We're going to be hit on all fronts. There's no two ways about it. And then we're also going to be hit in the auto repair side of things too, because if you have a used car, there's a chance that you may have to take it in for repair more often. Well, you still have to buy the parts that may come from another country. So we are going to be hit on all fronts. And then the repair shop has to buy gloves, has to buy products, has to buy equipment. All of that could be subject to tariffs if it's coming from another country.
Look, it is not lost on me, and I've seen the tariff impact already on school supplies.
Yes.
But we have Halloween, we've got Thanksgiving, and then we have, Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, New Year's. All those holidays are coming up. What is the outlook for how tariffs could impact our holiday spending?
When we started to talk about tariffs earlier in the year, there was a huge push and a huge rush to send products into the U.S. to avoid the tariffs, not knowing what was happening. So there's a lot of inventory here. How much and how long it will last, I don't know. But as you say, we are starting to feel the effects right now, and it can only get worse as we get through to the end of the year.
Should people start buying now?
I would definitely encourage you to buy as soon as possible.
Jan Griffiths, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us on The Pulse. Enjoy your weekend as well.
Thank you, you too.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that is The Pulse for tonight. We want to thank you for joining us. I am Brandon Hudson. Have a great weekend.